for 10 days, 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. Understandable with respect of highly immersed researchers that you all should be. Today it is very different because that is an indication of your affection to our former director and your teacher that I appreciate very much. Okay, I think we are going to have a seminar. I think it's so nice that Professor Narayana, whenever he comes to Trivandrum, makes it a point to come over with a new idea and interact with us. Much appreciated, sir. And this is not that we speak only public finance. We also, I mean, behind it there is public finance indeed. So you have to dig deep to find that. That's it. So issue is very important anyway. Sex, social groups, and learning mathematics in school completion in Karnataka. And we can do a comparative study with Kerala later. And I think Professor Narayana is going to bring a lot of insights and issues from Karnataka, which will form another set of issues that for future research. So my job is welcome and chair. I think I may not be able to sit here with a peace of mind because I have so many deadlines. I think it looks like the deadlines bucks the director maximum here. So I may be excused, sir. I think it's more like an interaction. So thank you very much. And without much ado, Sumalada will be the discussant. And out of thanks will be Gita Rani. So I think my absence is not going to make any big difference, I am very sure. So I may be permitted to go back. So okay, thank you very much. Now the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks for coming. It's good to see all the old faces with the new vigor. But I'm going to talk about a subject which is normally not talked. And I haven't seen much work either. I've been talking to people who work on education, and they say there isn't much work. So I think I have something to say. Yeah, let me begin with, PPT. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. The motivation for doing this work was a few months ago, I met one of my old students. She is doing some interesting work. She is associated with a foundation called Akshara Foundation in Bangalore. And they had conducted maths test for grade 4, 5, and 6 in all the government schools, primary schools in Karnataka. And she had a report on that. As soon as she saw me, she gave me a copy of that report. So, well, she's talked a lot about various things. Then my habit, especially when you see numbers, I start reading whether there is any pattern or something. And to my delight, what happened was that when I looked at the scores for the districts, I was already working on, I don't know whether you know it or, Gram Panchayats and decentralization is one of my subjects where I off and on work. On Kerala, I worked quite a bit. Karnataka, I started work. I started exploring a very interesting data set on decentralized governance in Karnataka. So then I thought, okay, why not I put the two together? And that is what, that led to something. Kiran knows about it. I wrote a paper. I was not very satisfied with it. It raised a number of questions. But then I felt that that actually should have come later. What should have come is what I'm going to present today. This is basically published data, and I'm really surprised that nobody has really bothered to look at the data. This is on SSLC pass percentages. So a starting point, there's also another motivation. That is, if you look at the district numbers, pass percentage, you know, it's really mind-boggling. One district reports pass percentage of more than 90%. At the other end, there is another district which reports pass percentage of only 40%. No, this is the sort of a variation that you will see in Karnataka. And what does that mean? And which are these districts? The district which is reporting 90% is a developed district. And that which is reporting 40% is one of the poorest districts. Now you see the implication of that. That was so shocking because the implication is that students coming from the poorer districts, you fail them at 10, more than half of them. I'll have more to say on that. More than half of them, you fail them at class 10. That is, the end of, as far as their entry into the labor market, you know what it means. They're condemned to the informal sector, very low paying informal sector. And more than girls, it is boys who are condemned to that sort of a thing. That means it reminded me of there is some interesting sort of a work that is done in the American context, where they say one of the, education outcome is one of, the ways the poor get emancipated. So that means there is no emancipation for these people. The poor districts. That is what, then I thought, let me have a look at it. That is the motivation. Okay, with that. Yeah, I just, this. Now, first look, it also told me something which I was totally unprepared for. Because I always believed that, when it comes to maths, boys do better than girls. That is always from very young ages, because especially I have three sisters, and one of the things on which we used to fight, oh, you will not be able to do it, sort of a thing. Yes, we will, of course, we three boys excelled in maths. And all of us ended in academics. That's a different matter. So the girls I used to, my sisters, I used to make fun of them. You will not be able to handle it and all, that sort of a thing. And I then used to see around. That was the sort of a thing. And I always believed, oh, they will not be able to do all this math sort of a thing. But look at this. And what you find is something which, I'll take you through that. That was another sort of a thing. So what I have done here, SSLC pass, that shows large inter-district variation. And most important, girls show much higher pass percentage. Students segmented by medium of instruction, by institutions, that is government school, unaided, aided, and caste. Fortunately, Karnataka has 8 caste categories. No other state does that sort of thing, and they give data by these caste. That's a very, interesting sort of a thing. Then, yes. Then subjects. You have 6 subjects, 3 languages, science, maths, social science, and then, of course, I have another data source, this Akshara Foundation. The grade 4, 5, and 6, they conducted maths test. That data also, fortunately, I talked to Vaijayanti, and she shared it with me. So that's what I'm going to use. Now, look at the Karnataka map that is needed. Now, if you look at, this part, this is called the Kalyana Karnataka. This Gulbarga, Bidar and all that, the part of Nizam's, Hyderabad, good old days before state reorganization, poorest part. Many of these districts are very poor. And you have uh, the coastal, Dakshina Kannada, Udupi, they are, you know, much better off at the top almost. If you leave out Bangalore, the Bangalore North, Bangalore South and all, then come Dakshina Kannada, Udupi, and that is the sort of a, so that's why I've given you the map so that you, when I say, some of these names, you are able to recall. So, and then, you know where the Belgaum is, Maharashtra border, and what these are, of course, revenue districts. But when I talk about districts, I'm going to talk about the educational districts. Some of these large districts are divided into, two education districts. So revenue districts, there are 31 revenue districts, but 35 educational districts. Okay, with that, if you look at the inter-district variation, before that, first let me put the macro sort of a picture. SSLC 2025 March April exam result, total pass percentage is 64.57%. Now 72 or rather 73% girls, 56% boys. And if you take the districts, what you find is that, as I already mentioned, Dakshina Kannada topped the ranks with a pass percentage of 91%. Kalaburgi, I hope you remember, Kalyan Karnataka, closer to the, it's actually closer to Hyderabad. That reports less than 40%. That's what I said, a 50% difference. And the 11 districts of Malenadu is basically that coastal and, the Western Ghats, this Chikamagalur, Hassan, Shivamogga, they're all part of Malnad. So if you take those 11 districts, they report pass percentages above 75, and Kalyan Karnataka, excluding Vijayanagara and Ballari, show pass percentages below 55. And Northern District, Vijayapura, has to be included here because Vijayapura also reports lower pass percentage. Now, if you look at the differences between sexes, Malenadu and coastal regions, high pass percentage overall, and low difference between male and female, boys and girls. In fact, Dakshina Kannada and all, it's very, very low. Whereas you go to Belagavi and Chikkodi, Chikkodi is part of the Belagavi revenue district, it's more than 20%. That is 80% for boys, 60%, no, 80% for girls, 60%, that's a sort of a. So, what you find is that, as I said, if you compare the districts, a 50% difference. Boys versus girls, 4% the top district to 22% at the other end. Now, I have put it in, this sort of a table because this also gives a graphical sort of a thing. At the same time, it also gives the names of the districts. Look at this, where I have shown the pass percentage of girls. This is, of course, English medium. It's not the total. I saved one or two because I didn't want to flood with a lot of tables. This is English medium. Just look at it. Greater than 90%, there, most of those districts, the difference between, the gap between boys and girls is also fairly low, less than 10%. Then, of course, there are some where the overall, girls pass percentage is more than 90, but the difference is slightly larger. That is Haveri, Chikkodi, that sort of a. So that's one end. And you have the other end, the Kalaburgi, Bidar, Ramanagara, Kolara, pass percentage, girls pass percentage. That's what you'll see on the horizontal thing, and the vertical, you will see the difference. Graphically, what it also gives immediate sort of a thing that you can make out is that there is a lot of variation in the girls' pass percentage, over 90 to below 80, and also the difference between boys and girls. And there is a very clear inverse relationship. That is, as the pass percentage of girls comes down, the difference also widens. You see, I don't have to say anything. You just look at the table that not only tells you this thing about what is the pass percentage of girls, it also tells you about the difference and what is the relationship. Because you see, if that, I wouldn't say diagonal sort of a thing, but that sort of there's a very clear concentration. Now, so one can actually run a regression, as I have also done. That is a difference on pass percentage of girls. In fact, it shows a strong negative sort of a relationship. uh, that is English medium. Now you come to Kannada medium. And if you look at the share of these, you will find that about 43% of the students, the total number of students who appeared for exam in March, April 2025 was more than 7 lakhs. And 54% of them studied in Kannada medium, 43 in English medium, and then about 2.3% in Urdu medium. Now, English medium, I already showed you the table. Now, you look at Kannada medium, what you find is that, you see, just contrast it with the English medium thing. You see, English medium, that large concentration above 90, then, you come down, a large concentration that below that 85, less than 80, 80, 85, you see they're all at the large difference. But look at Kannada medium, you don't have such clear pattern, except leave that top 5, 6 districts. Dakshina Kannada, Udupi, greater than 80, the difference between boys and girls is very small. But for the other districts, in fact, whatever be the pass percentage of girls, the difference between boys and girls is very high. See, you have the districts all over. You don't have a very neat sort of inverse relationship. That is what this table tells you. In fact, the difference between boys and girls pass percentage is very high in most of the districts. That's what it means. Above 15%, if you take, that is, if you look at, I don't have, do we have a pointer? That then it could have been. Anyway, I hope you are able to make out what I'm trying to say. You see, except for the rightmost column, you look at all the other columns and you look at the 15, 20 and greater than 20, you see you have districts all over. So the difference doesn't show a sort of a clear relationship with the level. Unlike in the English medium, you saw that, but Kannada medium, no, that's again very surprising, because one would have actually expected the other way around. But here what you find is that Kannada medium, pass percentage, boys, girls, the difference is very high. Even when the girls do well, the boys don't seem to do more than 15, 20% larger failure. That is among boys. Yeah, in almost all the districts except those 5, 6. That is what. And regression also, in fact, doesn't show a very strong relationship. Then, what I also did, this table shows you the distribution of districts by pass percentage of girls in English medium. That is what is shown in the horizontal sort of a thing. And the vertical, the difference is between English medium and Kannada medium, the girls' pass percentage. Now, you see, that again is quite a, not of course, the relationship is not as strong as what you saw for English medium, but you do have not as bad as, or not that non-significant sort of a thing that you see in Kannada medium. I hope this table is clear. Here what I have done is pass percentage of girls in English medium and against difference in pass percentage of girls, English and Kannada. That is what it is. So obviously, what it suggests, and you look at those districts, the same districts which come in most of those cells. That means there's obviously very strong district level factors which are shaping a number of those things. That is what the message that is coming out. Now, what I have done here is this basically English, Kannada, girls pass percentage, boys pass percentage. I have ordered them and then drawn this graph. Now, so you really have a gradient. What you find on the top is English medium girls pass percentage. And that, no, gray is, yeah, that is boys. Yeah, English medium, boys. What actually overlaid over there is Kannada medium girls. So you see, what it shows is that Kannada medium girls pass percentage is in some districts higher than, no, what did I say? Kannada medium, no, English medium boys pass is sometimes lower than Kannada medium girls pass percentage. Yeah. And then look at what is lying at the lowest is Kannada medium boys. Now, so you look at the distance. That is what I was saying. So Kannada medium, boys studying in Kannada medium, the pass percentage is so low. Every district. In fact, it's what is surprising is that there is no, except for the middle one. You see, do you look at the lower one? That doesn't cross any of the other ones. So they are so low. And, the very fact that one is able to draw this, that means the position, if you are ranking the districts, the position doesn't change very much. Whichever thing you take, the top districts are the top districts. The bottom districts are the bottom districts. I'll have more to say on this. I hope it's clear. So basically what one did was looked at this English medium, Kannada medium, and the relationships. Now, of course, I have taken up institutional, unaided schools, then government schools, and aided schools. This is unaided schools. Look at the, look at the table. The visual sort of a thing, you see very neatly as the percentage girls passing comes down from 95 to less than 80. You see the concentration of districts. Where do they lie? Look at the differences. Differences are less than 10 in Udupi, Dakshina Kannada, Kodagu. These were the same districts which you saw earlier in that top right-hand corner. And greater than 20 in, Yadgiri, Raichur, Kalaburgi, and, all those districts. Greater than 20. Mind you, unaided schools. One would have expected that unaided schools, you are paying, a lot of money and sending your kids. But you look at why is it that so many boys fail? Because that gap is so large. So what it really means is that in some of those districts, when 80% of the girls pass, it's less than 60% when it comes to boys. This is unaided. Next, you come to government schools. There again, like what we found with the Kannada medium sort of a thing, the pattern is not as sharp as you don't have such, sort of a clear relationship, and you have a large concentration of, that 60, 70, 70, 80. Less than 10, of course, you don't have any district, but 10, 15 to greater than 20, you have a large number of districts falling all over. That's the sort of a, so no clear pattern when it comes to government school. No, it's not so. It's not, you see, I was under the impression, but it's not. In fact, the relationship is much more complex. You see, uh, the you go to the website, you also have some other very interesting data. You have schools where pass percentage is zero, that 100% fail. They have given the list. And I was surprised to find you have a large number of unaided schools in that. In some of these districts, the largest number are unaided schools. That is also a bit of surprising. So how is it that they survive? Because the parents obviously pay money, but such large failure, eh? There are some, so so I actually started with that hypothesis. Unaided English medium, it doesn't work like that. It's much more complex. Obviously, there are very strong district level factors which are operating. Uh, it's not very clear. I don't have answers. I am able to raise questions, but I don't have answers for many of these questions. Because nobody else has raised questions. So I just started aided schools. Again, of course, the pass percentage of girls comes down in aided schools. But aided schools, uh, only 25% of the total schools are aided schools. Unaided is 34%. Government is, about 41 or something of that sort. So, but 25% is pretty large. And aided schools, the pass percentages are low. Just look at, some of those districts is less than 50 even for girls. And the boys, it becomes 20, 25. And as I mentioned, there are some schools it's zero. That is a sort of a relationship that you find. Okay. uh, then what I have done is, they also, as I said, there are 8 caste categories that, Karnataka follows that thing. They have very elaborate reservation for all these caste categories in professional educational institutions and all that. That's why they publish all this data. So I looked at that, and then I wanted to see whether there is any clear hierarchy sort of a thing. So I tested the pass percentages, because since we have 35 observations doing this test, they are fairly good sort of a thing. So paired t-test was carried out to see whether they follow any. And what one finds is that scheduled caste, uh, difference between scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, it's not a significant difference. That is what that minus 1.519 without any star means. T statistic estimated is minus 1.519, but not significant. But 2A category, that is pass percentage significantly higher than for scheduled castes. But 2B, again, that's what caste categories. Yeah, so you want some explanation of that. Okay. SC, ST, 2A is called OBC, 2B is Muslim, 3A is Okkaliga. All these DK Shivakumar, H.D. Kumaraswamy, they all belong to that Okkaliga. It's one of the large, powerful group. That is 3A. 3B is Lingayat. Hmm. Is it clear? And others. All the rest are others. Uh, now, no, you see, in educational things, the important thing in Karnataka is that all these categories have reservations, uh, uh, except others. Uh, yeah, and in fact, 3A and 3B, economically, they are very powerful. And now you see, you look at education thing also. You look at, as we come along, you will see, let me quickly go over and then see, SC, if you look at these numbers, what you will find is that SC are comparable to ST and 2B, that is Muslims. In fact, Muslims, I'll come to the numbers in the next table, they are comparable. The others are all above these three categories. That's one. Second, if you look at those categories, what you will find is that 3A and others, actually there is not much difference. Huh? They remain, they are at the top. And 3B, Lingayats, are at a slightly lower level compared to 3A and others. That is what you will find. And they're all significant. Now, this again is something which I didn't expect to find, that, such significant differences. But one does find that. So, such clear-cut sort of a thing across these caste groups. So, even when you have economically very powerful caste groups, and why is it that Okkaliga and Lingayat, in fact, if you look at the number of institutions, you have a large number of institutions owned by Lingayats. They're very powerful groups, especially in North Karnataka. But when it comes to, of course, they are on top compared to the other groups, but compared to the Okkaligas, they are still. So it's a very, interesting thing to look at these things. Yeah, no, let us come back to it after this. You see, here you have the percentage of pass. SC 59, ST 58, then category 1, 2A 71, Muslims. You see, they are at the bottom. And the difference between boys and girls, just look at that. It's about 15 percentage points. And Muslims, it is actually 20 percentage points. When 67% of Muslim girls pass SSLC, it's only 47 for boys. So 20 percentage point difference. And others is the other end. 76% of boys and 86% of girls. So the difference between boys and girls, 10 percentage point for others, 20 percentage for Muslims. All the others are in between. And that difference also between boys and girls, it is significant in every caste. That was also a bit of a surprise for me, especially the others. You see, there again, the boys and girls, it's a significant difference. 10 percentage point difference, but statistically it is significant. So that was again a bit of a sort of a surprising sort of a thing. Ranjit, you wanted something? So, once you are, now, yeah. So that is as far as the caste groups are concerned. So it is, we started with the medium of instruction, we then went on to the institutions. Now we come to the caste. Again, it's actually becoming more and more, the gap is becoming wider, and the gradient, those districts, that still continues in all these sort of a thing. Now, having said that, you see, the moment I found these Muslims at the bottom and the gap being 20%, immediately I went back to the original data and looked at the districts. For example, Dakshin Kannada or Udupi. where the overall pass percentage is more than 90, then what is that? But then, the interesting thing is there, in fact, the gap is very small, even among the Muslims. And in fact, the Muslim girls and even boys, the pass percentage is higher than some of the other caste groups. So overall, though they are at the bottom, districts like, especially three districts, Dakshina Kannada, Udupi and Kodagu, Muslims are not all that, not performing all that well. Now that raises a very, very important question. So what is it in these districts which sort of moderates this entire sort of effect, which is very strong in many of these other districts? So that's I have no answer, but it raises that question. And if that is happening, that means it must be happening in irrespective of the medium of instruction, irrespective of the institutional affiliation. Otherwise, you will not get this 90% and all. So those don't matter. Now, that is something which is a very, very important result. Okay, this I have more or less covered. So now let us turn to subject-wise. Look at, if you look at those numbers, the total pass percentage by subjects, it's maths and science. They are the lowest. So they have a crucial role to play in whether you pass or not, because the lowest percentages are maths and science. So they are the ones who really create all the problems for the students. And in fact, something which I have not given here, we also have data for repeaters, those who fail in the main exam. They can come again and give that exam in September. There you see what it comes out much more clearly. Maths, they don't succeed in maths. Their failure is very high, even in the repeaters. And it's mostly because of maths. Now that is what the first clue to that is already available here. Because if it is 74% in maths, your total is not going to be higher than math, 74. That is the point. Then what I have done is number of districts with the differences in each of these subjects. I have not given the, but that less than 8 difference. You remember those tables. Now what you find is that those 6, 7 districts at the top, they are the same. There are in some subjects, some of the others which are at the borderline, they just cross over, come in that cell. But when it comes to math, some drop out. But there are about 6 or 7 which are just fixed. Irrespective of what happens, they are there. Top, more than 90% pass. Differences between boys and girls is very small, less than 8. No. It is for all the subjects. Yeah. No, 35 districts divided into these groups. Yeah. What it means is that in maths, 8 districts, the difference between boys and girls is less than 8. Now, these 8 districts are the same top districts: Dakshin Kannada, Kodagu, Udupi, Shivamogga, Chikmagalur. Of course, sometimes it comes in, sometimes doesn't. That. So I have not given the names because then the table will be unmanageable. So I just given the numbers basically to convey this message that whichever subject you take, some of those districts, there the difference is very little and they are at the top. And you have about 15 to 7, not 15, the second language is a bit of a problem, about 17 districts. There the difference is larger than 12 between boys and girls. They are the same 17 districts for all the subjects. In some, of course, it's slightly less. some it is more. That's what it means. I hope it's clear. Any confusion regarding this table? So the important point that comes out here is that maths and science, they play a crucial role in deciding whether the students pass SSLC or not. And again, I have given this thing just to give you this, idea that, thus when I say 5, 6, less than 8, it is these districts. Now, in maths, this is what it is. Udupi, Dakshina Kannada at the top, very small difference. It's actually less than 8 means less than 5, actually. And then you have those Chikmagalur, Kodagu, Hasana, Shivamogga, Uttara Kannada, Sarsi. Those are the districts that coastal and Malenadu, which I highlighted earlier. So it is actually coastal and Malenadu. That area is the top. That Chikmagalur, Kodagu, Udupi, Dakshina Kannada. And you have, come to the bottom, Raichur, Kalaburgi, Yadagiri, and Bidar. These are the Kalyana Karnataka sort of a districts at the bottom. To add Vijayapura to that, Vijayapura is in the map, it is shown as Bijapur. And Madhugiri is actually a surprise. Madhugiri is part of Tumukur revenue district. I had expected Madhugiri's performance to be better, but surprisingly, yeah. Now, Koppala, Bidar are all part of Kalyana Karnataka. So this is maths. This is exactly like the other sort of a distribution of districts which you found in the other sort of dimensions. Okay. Yeah. Now, if you put the findings of these, what we the analysis till now, what you find is that the first is a steep gradient. Districts can be arranged neatly, and your, take your girls' pass percentage, from 70 to 95. Very neat gradient. And there is a strong inverse relationship between the difference and the pass percentage. Now, you find that irrespective of medium of instruction, institutional affiliation, caste groups, and subjects of study. That's what we found. And if you rank the districts, the position shows hardly any change. There are some marginal changes, but those 6, 7 districts, irrespective of which dimension you take, they are at the top. And you have about 17 districts at the bottom. It doesn't change. Only in between, some of them, they move up and down, but marginal. That is, so coastal and Malenadu districts, they are at the top, and Kalyana Karnataka and some of the northern districts, they are at the bottom. Now, obviously, there are district level characteristics which must be playing a very important role in deciding this gradient. But it's too steep a gradient. It's a surprising sort of a thing that you have such steep gradient, irrespective of which, of course, it's slightly lower than English medium sort of a thing, but even there, it's not all that small. So that is the one finding. So district factors play a very key role in shaping the SSLC pass. The second, differences between boys and girls. Again, you found it irrespective of which dimension you take, whether it's English medium, Kannada medium, you saw that graph. In fact, they don't not even overlaying, sort of, they're very clear, the difference is very large. And then such differences persist among caste groups, and they become much larger when it comes to maths and science. Now, the important issue arising out of this finding is do these differences exist at a very young age? You see, if they exist in the primary school, then okay, it continues. There must be something, the difference between boys and girls, that takes us to a very different level. Huh? If from a very young age you find this difference, which goes against whatever our understanding, especially as I said, I was brought up with a belief that girls perform poorly in maths. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the sort of a. But so this completely, if that is the sort of a thing, of course it overturns it. But if there is some such sort of a thing, if there is a difference from a very young age, then in continuing, no wonder. But if there is no difference in the primary school between boys and girls, actually in maths, then the question that is, it raises a very important question. That at a primary level, there is no difference between boys and girls. But by the time you come to write the school final, there is such large difference. That means it's crucially a contribution of the school system. The school system, instead of grooming the kids, it's actually doing something which is unimaginable. See, I hope I am clear. You see, if there is no difference between boys and girls in their performance in maths, say at the primary level, but when you come to write the SSLC exam, if you have such a large gap, when 70% girls pass, it's only less than 60% boys, then that's obviously a school system is doing something. No, in a past percentage, in a very, I'll elaborate that. Yeah.
Because up to 10 past percentage, there will be 22 past
Oh, no.
So it's not a standardized evaluation.
No. That is where, look at this table. This is standardized. This is why I refer to Akshara Foundation. You see, what Akshara Foundation did in 2024, August, September, is to carry out a standardized maths test in all the English, all the government schools in maths. And the cruciality of maths I've already explained, because maths pass is going to be, it's very important because that is the toughest sort of a subject in SSLC. If you pass maths, you are more or less passing SSLC is assured. So that's why it's interesting. I was lucky that Akshara Foundation has this sort of a data set. What they did was they of course consulted all these Pratham, PISA and all these usual these things, and they developed 20 questions on maths, different dimensions of the maths, and conducted this test. In a sort of a festive sort of a thing. Otherwise, when you say exam, often kids get tensed up about it. So it was a more like involving the panchayats and the community. So most sort of a festive sort of a thing. And they conducted this thing. And these percentages are, you see, if it is 1 out of 20 correct, that means 5%. They pass. And, like that. And I had access to this information by, all the students, boys and girls, how much was the score? And that is what I have tabulated. Now, this is what you find. Now, of course, I had to do a selection of districts. What I did was, of course, I'll also have to say, out of those 35 educational districts, they couldn't conduct tests in 7, which included Dakshina Kannada, Udupi. So it was a big loss. So we didn't have information. But then you had Kodagu and Chikmagalur, which are also part of that 7. So I picked up these 2 from the top. At the bottom, Kalaburgi and Bidar. You have seen all those tables, the bottom two, and the in between, Belagavi and Chikkodi. So 6 districts, I analyzed the data in full, and this is what you find. And it's very interesting. You look at, Chikamagalur and the distribution of students, girls and boys scoring less than 10%. That is answering 2 out of those 20 questions. There isn't much of a difference. 3.75, 4.67. Most of those differences are less than 1 percentage point. 3, 3.5, 4.3, 4.75, 5.95, 5.27, 6.57, 6.65. And at the top, that's greater than 80, you have 39.47 and I think 36. Again, the difference is just about 2 percentage point. That's Chikamagalur. Only Kodagu is a slightly sort of a different sort of a thing, because Kodagu, you find that it is 32 and 25 scoring more than 80%. But other sort of a, so there are 2 things that are coming out of this. One is Chikamagalur, Kodagu, kids scoring more than 80%. That is a slightly higher proportion. Kalaburgi, Bidar, the districts at the bottom, you see there, you look at those, that Kalaburgi, 18.23 and 19.83. Yeah, there is a larger proportion who score poor marks. So there is something in the teaching even at that level. In the better of districts, kids do much better in math, score more than a large proportion. So in fact, if it is above 60%, Chikamagalur and Kodagu, more than 80% of the kids are scoring more than 60% in maths. Whereas it is that 60 at the bottom in Kalaburgi and Bidar. Now Belagavi and Chikkodi are comparable to Chikamagalur and Kodagu. That is what. The first point is, if you look at the, what percentage, this fits in with that gradient. But difference between boys and girls, practically no difference. Those percentages, the difference is less than 1 in most of the cells, except maybe 1 or 2. I think not 1 or 2. In all, I think out of that, how many? 90 or 100 observations, only about less than 10, the difference is more than 1 percentage point. Otherwise, they are same. So the conclusion, I think it's a very, very important conclusion. At the primary school level, there doesn't seem to be, except Kodagu. Kodagu, I don't understand why that's happening. There doesn't seem to be any difference between boys and girls at the primary school. Maths. And if they do well in maths, obviously they must be doing well in other sort of subjects. So, but over the next 8 years, somehow there is a huge difference between boys and girls in their performance in maths. That is what contributes to, at least in part, to this large variation. So, the school system. So, instead of save the girl child, I think I should be saying save the boy child. Because the school system seems to be pushing them down by a huge percentage. It's a worrying sort of a thing, you see. It's a worrying because, what it really means is that if only 20% boys pass in a district like Kalaburgi, 80% are failed. where do they go? And look at their, there is no emancipation for these districts at all. Eh? And, we talk a lot about demographic dividend, this thing, that thing and all. But if this is the sort of a thing, what demographic dividend? No, we have been seeing here, no, for a long time. Anyway, if I have time, I'll come to that. Because this is something which I have been telling for the last 15, 20 years in Kerala. I witnessed it in front of my own eyes. Because one of the regular places, I used to regularly visit is Kasaragod Government College. And there was a time when there were only few girls. uh, and very few questions from girls, because there were hardly any girls. But by the time people like Divya, I think the class was full of girls, no? How many girls in your class? Huh? Uh, ah. Eh? Oh, you are in a different world altogether. Okay. Huh? I saw it in front of my own eyes. The sort of a, now that's happening in Karnataka. Uh, but the reason maybe I don't want to get into that thing. Okay. So now inter-district variation, steep gradient, that means there must be very, definite factors, district level factors or regions. If coastal Karnataka and Malenadu are remaining at the top, irrespective of which dimension you take, and Kalyana Karnataka, northern Karnataka are at the bottom, then there must be regional and district level factors which must be shaping that gradient. That's one. Second, difference between boys and girls. Now, the difference, as I showed you, the Akshara Foundation data, I have no reason to doubt that data. It's one of the best efforts that I have seen. I don't think anything of that sort has been done anywhere, such detailed, comprehensive sort of a testing. One doesn't see the difference between boys and girls at the primary school level. Kodagu, of course, exception. But by the time you come to class 10, there is a large difference. And larger at the lower end and smaller at the upper end. But there is a difference. Now, what is the reason for the difference? Is it pedagogy? Is it treatment of the subjects? Or is it treatment of something else? It could be many factors. One doesn't know. So that is what actually this analysis opens up. Thank you very much. Okay.
So first of all, I would like to thank Narayana sir for taking this very socially relevant topic for studying. And the topic has direct policy implications, the findings shows. So while reading the paper, I understand that it has gone through a thorough thought process. Most importantly, what I felt was how to present in the write-up. It is completely based on the write-up. So how to present the matter in a way that is easy for students to understand, and without using much econometric exercise other than this small test. So the study basically looks at the SSLC results in Karnataka state from 4 angles, that is gender, that is boys and girls, and social groups, type of institutions, that is government, private and private aided, and the medium of instruction, it is English, Kannada and Urdu. The major concern is that 50% of children in the state fails in the SSLC examination. I think this has motivated sir to take up this study. And in the case of inter-district variation in SSLC results, what I felt was it would also be better to provide the SSLC results for overall state and for different districts for at least a decade in order to understand whether there is any improvement in the results across the districts over time. As Sir has rightly mentioned in one portion of the paper that he has looked at the previous year's data and it didn't show much difference. So the district-wise information will give us like kind of the improvements or no improvements happening the districts. I think for the background it would be nice. And I don't have major comments, but I have some clarification here and there. And the social group wise population across the district will help us too, because since you have given the map and this thing, like in the presentation it is much clear, but in the write up I felt the because in some, I don't know about in Karnataka, but other states in some districts it's more population, like some social group population is more in that particular district. So likewise, so the social group wise population across the district will help us to understand the past results across social groups in districts, and that can contribute to the policy making. Like we can also relate it with like whether the performance is bad or not. And you have mentioned about the ranking of districts by SSLC pass percentages corresponds to the ranking by economic indicators such as per capita income, that basically you were referring to the district characteristics. It would also be better to have a correlation between the pass percentage and the sum of the relevant socio-economic indicators of different districts. So if we can relate the rankings of the pass percentages and also the some of the major socio-economic indicators will, as I think you have done the correlation. So this also can give us a better understanding how we can relate it with the socio-economic development of the maybe some district which you were mentioning about the Shina Kannada and all, they may be good at the social indicators and similarly per capita income and so on. So that may be leading to the quality of education in that particular district. We don't know, the quality of teachers may also be good. So that all historical processes. So in that way, this analysis would also be better if we look it into that angle. And you have for computing the distribution of students by grade 4 math scores, the data for the government schools have been used. So not in this context I'm referring, but for to get a holistic picture, the district wise proportion of students studying in government, private and private aided schools would be useful information, because the richer states, the kids may be more kids may be going to the private aided. We don't know the pattern. Maybe in the Karnataka case, it would be nice if you can arrange the data according to the district. At the state level, you have given in the paper, like how much students are going to the different type of institutions. And also, sir, I have a suggestion. Like in some places, you have mentioned government, private, and private aided schools, but in some places, aided and in that classification have been also. It is understood, but since we can use the uniform usage, it would be better. It would be appropriate. And the district wise medium of instruction wise students appeared for examination, because we don't know, like because as Kiran was referring while you were presenting, so we don't know the medium wise, maybe in some district more students are going to English medium in proportion to the number of schools in that particular district. So medium wise classification is already there for the state, but district will give us a pattern, like whether they are moving towards more of English medium or Kannada medium. Because I have a understanding that in the government schools, more maybe the Kannada medium is, we don't know. Maybe recently they have started English mediums also in Kerala. They almost all the schools now, like they have started, and some schools are yet to start, but they are also slowly doing it. Maybe the same case with the Karnataka. So we will get a pattern of that. So overall for the states, the SSLC pass varies by more than 50 percentage points among the district, and the differences between boys and girls vary 8 and 23 points. So that is something very striking. So in analysis, in section 3 analysis, in the case of Urdu medium, the difference in pass rate is found to be large in Chikkaballapura district. There you have mentioned 0 for boys. I think while presenting, you were mentioning about that particular district, 0 for boys and 60% for girls. Is it the pass rate, zero pass rate for the boys that you were referring to that? Because I thought there may be some mistake because I didn't know that there will be zero pass rate for boys. So I think it is cleared in your presentation. So next is the reporting of pass percentages and differences in pass percentages for girls and boys in some places were confusing in the write-up. Maybe like again I have gone through it. I could understand, but for first set of reading, I think the usage pass percentages and differences in the pass percentage sometimes gets confusing. And in some places that I have already mentioned, the classification of private, government, private aided schools, that uniform pattern. And it is an important result that there is variation in the girls' performance in SSLC examination between social groups across the district. So we can see there is a huge difference even in the social groups. So linking it with the like the human development indicators of the district I think will be able to provide some explanation. For example, women the females education or literacy rates in those districts. So that is also, I mean, especially the girl children's education, that is closely related to mothers' education. So in that way, linking that can also give that will not provide the entire reason for it, but it can give some kind of hints about the changes. I mean, the difference that you have seen. And I don't know whether, because sir, you have rightly pointed out that there are not much studies on this particular aspects, and I feel some kind of, including at least some most relevant literature in the research area, at least to establish the research gap would be good. That I have a kind of this humble suggestion. And that at the end you were also talking about what actually matters for these differences in all these categories. It is evident that there may be some district specific categories, but exploring those, maybe you may be doing it in the future, maybe to explain this, and exploring the district level factors would be good understanding, at least taking some district case studies of some districts and understanding the pattern. I think that will give much more value addition to this results. And I was also thinking, like, can it be related to the education system as such, kind of the curriculum, that medium of instructions, and the quality of teachers, some kind of insights you can talk to the officials and get. Some cases can be included, and that will give more kind of uh, you can substantiate your results. So thank you, sir.
On to these comments right now before opening the. No, no, no. Let me. Yeah, but all that Dr. Suma mentioned, if one has to do it, it's going to be a research program. My initial interest was to write just a paper, but now looks like I can't get away with that. But also my main focus, that's why concluding, 2 slides, I said first the gradient. That calls for an explanation. I'm not going to get into it. My specific objective in this paper was to focus on this difference between boys and girls. And, can I establish this point that there is no difference at the primary level, but because that is what immediate, first thing that came to my mind. Is it that you have that difference from the very beginning? Now, you see, with the Akshara Foundation data, one is able to show that there is no difference at the primary school level. That means it's obviously after that, over those 8 years, something is happening. What are it? What are these? And of course, the district level factors do moderate or accentuate it. But that difference, as the analysis showed, irrespective of which dimension you take, you get the difference. Now that is a worrying sort of a thing. Huh? So that was the main focus. The other things, of course, because they require much more work. And also literature-wise, I don't think anybody has looked at it this way. So all that, of course, I have to give some literature. Basically, I have to start by asking this question: is there a difference between boys and girls? Yeah? There must be some literature on this. There is. So I give that, because then that puts my, work on a, some frame sort of a thing. That is what I intend to do. And then, you made a lot of points about that district-wise, and in fact, one of the reasons why one did that English medium, Kannada medium, and institutional thing, you see that compositional sort of a thing. I mentioned it in the paper. That would explain part of the gradient. Eh? So one can do that. That is simple accounting sort of a thing. It's nothing very. You get to put the data together. You can find out of this total variation how much is explained by these compositional sort of a things. But is there anything beyond that? Now, that is not going to be easy, because at the district level, you see, per capita income figures, there is a big problem. Because my own view is that per capita income is a meaningless sort of a indicator, largely because, firstly, district level estimates, you don't have very good estimates. And whatever we have, they're all that GDP based sort of a thing, not the GNI. Eh? So all those migration, the incomes, remittance incomes, they just don't captured by it. And many of the districts, a large proportion of the incomes are remittances. So how good these estimates, I'm not very sure. So one has to make a great effort to collect that data and do all this. But if the indicators are not very good, then they are not going to, even justifying that will become a, because I have been very critical of this district level, whatever, the Department of Statistics, whichever state does it. I'm very critical of it for exactly this reason, because what has happened over the years is you have a large, the migration has increased so much that many districts are either they produce and they send, or there are districts which receive a lot of remittances. And if you see even 10%, 20% sort of a thing, that would make a huge difference. So I'm not very sure, especially when you have so many other variables, how much of this would, of course, I'm doing something else, that what I'm doing is, you see, panchayat level, fortunately, unlike Kerala, Karnataka has a very good database as far as the panchayats is concerned. Yeah. And there, one thing that you get on a regular basis is property tax data. Good property tax data. And property tax should be a much better indicator than per capita income on the GDP sort of thing. Because if you have some means of livelihood, you are slightly better off. One of the first thing that is going to happen is your house would be definitely better. So that could be a good proxy. And the property tax, unlike Kerala, it is not the panchayat which is deciding what should be the rate. It's the state government which decides. So there is a uniformity. And not only that, there is every 2 years, there is a increase. It's very, no, Kerala doesn't follow any such sort of a thing. And there is lot of inter-GP variation in Kerala. The rates are very different. So you can't, even with whatever data quality, hats off to, or thanks to Dr. Krishnan and others who started off this IKM business and claim lot of things, but the data is useless actually. We don't get into that sort of a problem in Karnataka. The data is good, and I am slowly. Yeah, every district. No, it is the Rural Development Department. Their website has that data. Panchayat level data. Huh? So one can explore that, and that's good quality data because it doesn't get, you know, it doesn't suffer from this problem of differing, panchayat level determined property tax rates. That doesn't, because that introduces a complication. Whereas it is a state level, uniform sort of a rates. So interpreting that becomes easier. Kerala, it's pretty difficult to interpret that. Even with all those Kerala, of course, something can be done, but cannot be used for this sort of a purpose, Karnataka. So one is trying to do that. I think I'll stop with that. Uh, yeah.
Please raise your questions, concerns, clarifications.
Pardon me? Yeah. I have come here basically to pick your brains. Give me some solutions. Because I haven't given any solutions. I only raised questions. And it's an online thing, no? There were some people attending. There must be. Harikumar was, Professor Harikumar was there. He must have got bored with my. No, that is, yeah.
Sir, as you already mentioned, the reason for these differences, the variations in the outcome of the students due to some district level factors. We can also see the variations in interstate variations in outcome also in India state level. So can we call these the factors you also mentioned district level factors or the state level factors like maybe the historical, cultural or the institutional? Can we call all these factors, the state specific or district specific factors as the state capacity or the ability of the state to provide the educational services? If it is, can we call like that? Can we capture this kind of effects in India in subnational level? What are the variables we can proxy for doing that?
Tough question. See, in fact, I have another paper which Dr. Kiran has already read and given comments. See, I started looking at it, and what you mentioned about this per capita income, and it's of course not a SSLC result, it's the grade 4 maths sort of a thing. There is a gradient. There are some districts doing better, as I have shown you already. That last table, you have already seen that. There, what one found was, of course, there is that relationship, positive relationship. Higher incomes, better scores. But lower incomes, poorer scores. But there are some outliers. There are some high income districts which were performing poorly. There are some very low income districts which were performing much better. And then one went on to check why. Why is it that that's happening? Then what one did was at the panchayat level. I have the income data, per capita income. I have the maths scores. I tried looking at the relationships. It's not all that simple. It becomes very complicated. Of course, composition in terms of SC, ST, no, your point about, district level doing that and all, it's pretty difficult because, of course, you have data on SC, ST, Muslims, you have the data. For other categories, district level, you don't have such, so that's one. No, but the point is that when I started looking at it, you see, one of the major problems, even with this, that we don't have data, especially maths score data for Dakshina Kannada, Udupi, and some of those, because they were at the top, you see. Now, what is it in these districts which led to this? We cannot answer that question. That's a major gap, because they could conduct these maths tests only in 28 educational districts. They missed out the Dakshina Kannada, Udupi, not Shimoga, I think Chikmagalur, and some of those 4-5 districts. Education, they don't have the data. So that is a major gap, because there, you see, you only have about 7 districts, education districts in that. Out of that, if you don't have data for 4 or 5, then you see you are in trouble. Now that is a major gap. But obviously, you look at that, I already mentioned it, Dakshina Kannada and Udupi and Kodagu. Even when Dakshina Kannada, I think, has 24% Muslims. But then, there, you don't have their pass percentage is not very low. It's very comparable to the. Now, what is it that Dakshina Kannada and Udupi has only 4% Muslims, but they are doing much better than even SC, ST. Whereas overall, now, these are things which, of course, I don't think a secondary data will be able to answer. One needs to probably look at historical evolution. And that's what then again, a Chamarajanagar is a backward sort of a district. But in some respect, that's doing much better. Better than, their level of income. So, but that takes us to a very, very different sort of a, and I don't think I am competent to get into that sort of a thing. So, thanks for the.
More questions?
Not a question, but just a doubt. So you said that district like Kalaburgi, they are poor in the case of their economically poor. So whether the reason may be because of the boys have to go for work and they are not able to study well, kind of thing.
No, I would actually want the burden be more on the girls. But if one applies that logic, the girls should have scored less. It doesn't look like that. No, so you see, these are the things which come to mind. Yeah.
And these districts happen to be poorer districts, which means generally the economic well-being is low. Which means that is it a possibility that only really studious girls are continuously going up to class 10. Those who have not been doing well have been dropped out even before reaching class 10. That is why you may be seeing that kind of a difference at school level, that there's no much difference in gender in class 4. But as you go up the ladder, the differences are becoming sharp, because is it a natural self-selection that is happening?
No, if they are dropping out, then you see, why should the failure rate be high?
I'm saying to the students who are not doing very well academically, the penalty will always, in Indian society is such that the penalty will always be on the girl child first. While the male child will not be having that kind of a discriminatory practice, they will continue to go to school 10 plus 2 and so on. But if girl child, they are not doing, especially in.
No, but the numbers, no, the numbers don't suggest that. You see, the numbers are almost equal. So if that was the case, there should have been a significant difference between those who appeared in the SSLC. If your argument is right, the girls, number of girls should have been lower compared to the boys.
So we could also reverse what is happening to loss involvement ratio over.
No, now that doesn't, that's not a, see, SSLC appearance, they give the absolute number. You don't see such difference. So that's,
Pass percentage difference.
yeah.
No, sir, actually, in connection with this point, so you have already taken the 1 to 4 class, right? But then upper primary and secondary, that level data you don't have actually to.
No.
So
that's
he's
yeah.
suggesting, I mean, he's maybe thinking the possibility that the repeated grades or dropout rates of boys during the time period from 4th standard to 10th standard may be a factor to this difference.
No, it would be a factor if there is a difference between boys and girls in that dropout. If there is no difference, then why should it be a factor? See, huh?
But total number in
No.
the class.
Huh.
Sorry. This survey that you compared of
Yeah.
class 4 is a recent survey, right?
Yes.
That means they are doing class 4 now.
Hmm.
It might turn
Yeah.
out that the gaps, which is narrow now, might turn out that by the time they reach class 10, the gaps will be virtually the same. But so we are actually comparing two different cross sections. That could be some.
Yeah, that would pose some problems, but I don't think it will be such a serious. Because you see, if you do, that's where Kumar's suggestion. Look at the data for a few years. I already, because 2019, they have a report. I looked at that. It actually doesn't show any difference from what we find for 20. So,
But sir, some long period back, I mean, at this 10 years gap, if you see this,
no,
because
one
10th,
can
10th grade,
2019, 2025, 6 years. You see, if you don't see, you see the hierarchy the same, the position of the districts, there isn't much of a change. Percentage pass, there isn't much of a change. So what more can, one can go on.
but sir, there will be something, no, sir.
No,
in
there
between,
isn't.
yes.
There isn't. That's a surprising thing. You see, one of the first things that I did was 25, then I looked at the data source. And they had this report for 2000. I was so happy. So I spent, in fact, 2 full days I was just looking at that thing and see whether there is any difference. There is no significance out of it. So obviously, yeah.
Sir, I have mainly on that.
Mike, you can. That, okay, I will start with your point that where your results have been counterintuitive to what is the popular notion that the girls students don't do well in math. But actually that is true. If we look at All India School Education Research Survey, ASER surveys, or you look at the learning outcomes data, which is in sync with the standard PISA evaluation of learning outcomes. We have looked at it. Right now, I think it's correctly 10 years. And it was slightly shocking when we looked at data from the IHDS, because what IHDS does is, along with the household roster, they have linked the math, English learning outcomes. They are not exams. They are asking a class 8, class 9, class 10 students, 3 classes, to solve the basic mathematical operations of class 5. That is the setting. So to what extent they have been able to do it? So there, the data shows a very stark gender differences. You don't find any gender difference when it comes to vocabularies, but there is a persistent gender difference. Then I didn't take part in that work, but later on, my friend has actually taken it forward. And then they started controlling for household income effect, school effect, distance effect, all kind of effects have been controlled, but the gender differences persist. So, but in Karnataka, uh, that result is interesting. But then what we actually started thinking that time was that when we see this particular difference coming up, but when we compare the PISA scores with that of pass percentages, it is not just in Karnataka. Pass percentage is consistently high for female students across the Indian states, at least in metric. And that is a growing trend. And why that is happening is something that I think is a separate research question. But
that is the puzzle that we had. When we are looking at the pass percentages at class 10 level, female students seem to be doing better. But when we look at the PISA scores of learning outcomes, especially in math, the girl students are not doing very well. So how do you square this? So that is where I was thinking, if these two yardsticks are throwing very different results, then can we compare the score that is based on Akshara's survey with that of SSLC board results? So there can be some, I mean, I think one has to be a little bit more, digging deep to see whether they are comparable in the first place. If they are not, then there can be some challenge in terms of attributing that the differences that are invisible in class 4 are becoming very stark when they move up to class 10. So that is my apprehension.
Exactly that. They say the school system is obviously contributing to something. You see, if you don't see it in class 4, and you see it in class 10, so obviously the school system, which should have helped them to get over whatever.
But sir, why do we expect the school system to have a differential treatment for two?
What do you do? You see, in a class, what do? If you identify that a student is weak, what do? You give more
Emphasis.
exactly. You mentor them better, no? That's what we are supposed to do as teachers. So obviously, what it means is that the school system fails you because students.
But then level matters, no, sir. Actually, in the earlier levels, it is like kind of, just passing kind of things.
Yes, it's not just passing. So let us not have no misunderstanding of it. It's very rigorously done. I would in fact say it is more rigorous than the Prasam and all that purposes. In fact, the report is an eye-opener because the team led by Vajayanti, they did, they looked at answer sort of a thing because she was also part of the answer at one time. So she knows how it is done. Looked at the PISA sort of a thing and various other, about 6, 7 sort of a thing. So, that I don't think is the problem.
But sir, in between, if you have data, so upper primary.
Say is that in between you don't have that. Of course, as it has its own problems. I have serious problems with that, the way they produce the report, and they also don't give the data to anybody, so it's impossible to cross them. No, they don't. They don't clearly tell you how they do the selection, how they do the district, how they do the sample selection. There are problems, and it is something which is difficult to sort out. So the way they do it, and the beauty of Akshara Foundation is that it's carried out in every government school, in every district except those 5 districts, where they couldn't get teams to do that. So that data source is a very rich data source, and it has been done very systematically. And you get the surprising result. Of course, I have an answer why you get this, but I don't want to. You will call it my bias, but
Sir, I have a connected observation there because when it comes to SSLC, particularly in Karnataka, I have personally observed that most of the rural folks only go for it because it's not like how it operates in Kerala. And also, like regarding to the previous discussions, connecting to the previous discussions, PISA score metrics and SSLC score as a benchmark for that. When you change the board, so the male female differences may be different. So if it is a CBSE or any other board, the male female differences can be different because the kind of analytical questions that they have to encounter in a state board versus other boards will be different. That is one thing. Second thing is like without connecting it, when we talk about enrollment, it is basically we see that socioeconomic factors affecting the enrollment and all. And also the results of the enrollment is right now also we are of the view that there are gender differences, male female differences. But when it comes to learning outcome, depending upon different metrics, we get different results. So in your exercise also, if you do a learning adjusted years of schooling, I think that can take care of some of the learning adjusted years of schooling. So it is not basically telling about the educational attainment. So it takes care of your learning outcomes also.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
I'm not interested in that. Or not concerned me. See, if you don't pass a SSLC, what about the future of that?
Yes, sir.
Learning outcome and all, yes, that takes us a very deep, but I'm not concerned about.
Mm.
I'm concerned about, you see, these 50% or 60% of the boys in the backward district, once the SSLC door is shut on them, they're finished.
Mm.
You can say learning outcome is that I'm not, that's a different.
Mm.
Yep, but you have a point. When you talk about the SSLC board versus the CBSE board, this is what I was about to. Now, the SSLC exam, it's not just Karnataka board. All the states, what is it testing? Is there a problem? The assessment that is done in these schools, does it emphasize rote learning or does it emphasize problem solving? If it is rote learning, then you see there is a big problem. So then what is assessed? That is a big question. I'm not getting into that question because that would be raising too many.
So your sample actually includes all type of mode of thing, right? I mean.
No, it's only
State-
the board.
State board only, even in the private as well as in the aided. Then the results may vary.
There is a, yeah. No, but that creates another problem. Which schools go to CBS? So that takes us to that doesn't answer
Be
this.
very complicated.
Yeah. So, no, there again, no, so, continue on. See, there's a thing, is it the board, the assessment effect, or is it the intake effect? You see, if only from a certain social segment, people end up in CBSE schools, then what is it that you are testing? So that takes us to a very, because the largest number, in any case, the board exam, so it's important for us. But of course, we have to be aware that there is this problem.
So I have actually in 4 lines, I mean, the possibility you could, maybe you may have answer to that. The one is, as I mentioned already, that after fourth, the dropout or repeated grades possibility. I mean, that you already mentioned the justification. And in connection with that, the adolescent age, okay, parenting or this one could be one factor that can pull or push. And then third one is district level labor market structure. If something is basically attracting boys disproportionately, that could be a reason, one possibility. And then another one is, that is what I am interested, any targeted schemes like scholarship, hostels, bicycles, freebies, any kind of these schemes basically attracting girls more than boys. That could be one reason. That is one possibility. And the last one is any spatial effect is present in you district variation you have shown in the graph map. Any geographical pooling is there. So these are the some of the thought. I mean, maybe you may have some.
I have one. I have one assumption. Don't laugh. That assumption need not be that trivial. Also, sir, we need to look at average age at which the female is getting married across districts, because there is this burden that usually female students face these days, that if they are not studying well, and they will get them married off. So there is a more incentive effect to study harder for girls than, no, it is not. It is not as jovial as it looks. It's actually happening.
Just one observation, like related to his question. So it's from my experience when I was in Bangalore. So in our department, around 31 or 33 multitasking staffs were there. So out of 33, I think more than 26 were boys, and they belong to the age group of 17 to 21. Okay, so when we interact with them, they are not from financially backward families. Their families are like into real estate business or some kind of business or even management or even large scale agriculture. So the thing is, after 10th, some of the boys will go for PUC. Like in plus one, plus two, they call it as pre-university college. So some of them will go for PUC. After that, they'll stop study. Okay. So it's kind of family orientation. Like if you are a boy, after 10th or plus two, you have to find a job. So after this 10th or 12th, they'll join their family business or they'll try for job. And these people have siblings. So girls are there, their elder sister or younger sister, they'll continue study. But these people will go for work. No, the family orientation I'm saying, like it's not. Hmm. Significant. Ah,
One index, actually Tamil Nadu government has constructed for adolescent vulnerability index, late adolescent, early adolescent, and late adolescent. And early adolescent, this gender gap is, I think, very narrow. And late adolescent, the gap is very high. And they have done something related to some outcomes like that. And what they have found that after SLC, after this adolescent, early adolescent time, actually this is significantly affecting the outcomes with that.
Last point. I have more actually. So there is one interesting way to study and unpack this. But if we can I mean, but that will take us completely away from this, but we can unpack it. How? So we look at intra-household differences in purse percentage. So that means we are controlling for the endowment effects. Then what we have is a motivation effect. So then that will tell the story.
But when you
A, the first question itself, I think, is an interesting question to engage. And that is very alarming also. In one district, you have boys' purse percentage is as low as 20%. I think the state should immediately get into the action and see why is it happening like that. So that itself is a separate question. Then the next question is the differences in performance. And the third question is why the difference in performance is widening over time. So three, I think, although questions are related, but I think one can do very nuanced work in each of them. For example, when we are looking at the district level differences in pass percentage, we can study it based on the composition of schools and whole lot of district level factors and see whether just the pass percentages, pupil teacher pupil ratio and this average distance to school and all of it we can control. And if even then the unobserved effect is so high, then I think we should be thinking something else. But otherwise, some of it when we do at the district level, we will be able to show up this disparity that we see.
But I think it's already there.
So, as part of the formal out of thanks, my assigned duty is to propose that. So, as part of this insightful discussion, so much of research questions being put forth. So, you guys can address that. Thank you, sir, for such a wonderful presentation. Thank you. And thank you, Sumalada ma'am, for discussing the paper in such a manner. And thank you, everyone who has joined here. Thank you.
none of them asked any questions. It's a seminar praising them and they refuse to ask questions.